Hi folks, with Tacitus today, your pushback channel, and thank you for joining this audio live stream. In this essay, I'd like to talk about green energy companies. They're manufacturing green energy technology or developing green energy technology or installing it or whatever, but they're involved in the green energy business. Now, for those of you who don't know, the green energy, it doesn't matter whether it's solar panels or wind farms or whatever it is, none of it can make money in any commercial sort of sense. So the only way they can start up at all or survive is by government grants and handouts and super generous tax write-offs, things like that. That as a commercial, they just cannot compete with fossil fuel and coal and so on. So they have to be artificially propped up. So how this can be a benefit or a boon to the community or to the society or to the planet is quite beyond me. But anyway, let's look at it. Now, there are a number of these, in fact, many of these businesses have started up, and governments, Western governments all over the world have seen it. And again, they're being pushed into it by the big sort of capital, the big financial firms like BlackRock and all that sort of stuff are really leaning on all governments to do that and put money into these green schemes. Again, none of them can stand on their feet financially. So, and some, the subsidy there's requiring is vast. We're not talking $1 or $2 here. We're talking gazillions. Billions in Australia alone, tens of billions has been invested in green energy in one sort or another, and some of the most harebrained schemes you can imagine have been subsidised. Now, once government money appears, and I'll look at it, I'll look at a few companies here, but once government money appears, governments have a terrible habit of, instead of putting that money up to make a successful business, a business that really works, that's commercially viable with a viable product, instead of doing that, the government sees handing over this sort of money as really, okay, if we're giving you all this money, we want many favors in return. You have to employ our friends. You have to employ our mistresses. We're well connected into activist green NGOs. You have to give these people jobs, and well-paying jobs. This is the management team you will hire. You will have these people in senior, prestigious, very well-paid roles running the business. Now, the trouble is that none of these people could run, they couldn't run a bath, let alone a business. And all they've ever done is run around the streets waving placards, or maybe they've been hacks or goons in some public service department, or maybe they're just the mistress of an influential politician or something like that. But none of them are actually qualified and capable of running a business, running a viable business. None of them have had any sort of business success or achieved anything in their own right. They're just parasites that come out of the woodwork every time a pot of money appears. And these are the people that are put in to run these businesses. And there are capable people out there, but they're not the ones that they reach for. Again, we're throwing vast sums of money here, and we want that money to go to our friends. And that's that. We don't care if this business is successful or not. We just want this gob of taxpayer money all going to our friends. So anyway, this is where we, in the business I'm associated with, this is where we sort of appeared on the scene. So I can give you a front row seat here. Someone suggested in the comments that I was running a personal diary on this. That's not the case. That's nonsense. Instead of me just commenting on a news item or something like that, I can actually give you a front row seat narration of what happens and what goes on in these places, and thus it becomes a first-hand account. Anyway, so we go on. I'm part of the crew. I'm not in the first meeting. I wasn't in that, but in a couple of the subsequent ones I was. So I got to meet the sort of senior management of the company. Now, there's not one of them that I would hire. If I was the CEO or the chief architect of the whole business or something like that, I wouldn't hire any of these people. The people at the upper middle level were just, snot-nosed, attitude-laden, attitude-dripping activists out of the NGO sector. So they're almost like they'd gone to green NGO placard wavers and said, well, not all must have had. They'd gone to these green activist NGOs and said, we'll just give you people jobs. But what were they to do? None of them had any work. None of them had ever had a job. Or, they had a degree in, fucking sociology or something like that. And they're not there to create a successful business. They're there to fight Nazis, as far as they're concerned. What? And so none of them have any commercial expertise or commercial focus or business knowledge. They've got no idea how to behave. As far as they're concerned, they're still placard wavers that are just now getting very well paid. So they get onto social media and say how evil coal or oil is. And that becomes sort of their job or something. Now, the CEO was... he was a guy who'd actually been part of an R&D team that had developed some quite interesting technology. The technology that this particular company I'm thinking of was built around that idea. Actually, I thought it was quite clever. I thought it had possibilities. If it was handled correctly and dealt with correctly, I think it could have gone places. But he was just a boffin engineer. He was. I doubt he could have put two socks on at the same colour or something. He was just wasn't with it in the real world. He was a complete research scientist, really, that lived in the laboratory. That was his thing. And they made him the CEO because he understood the technology and had been a principal player in developing it. So to some extent, I kind of get that. But again, the guy had never worked at a job. He'd never had a job as outside of the research lab. He'd never actually had a commercial job. The research projects he had, he's not paid for success. And the guy's got plenty of brain power in the scientific side of things. I don't dispute that, and I'm not one to judge. I don't have a PhD in science or something, but he lacked all practical. He had no sense of practical reality at all, no sense of commercial reality, no understanding of how you bring technology to the market to make it successful, none whatsoever. But a nice enough sort of guy. Now, they bring in, a little irritating though, they bring in a seat. Now, here's the thing, they decide that he's not commercially savvy, and which is true. And in fact, he volunteers that actually. The company's struggling, the business is struggling, and he volunteers that maybe he's not the guy to lead. So he'll sort of head up or stay in charge of the technology and the ongoing research and development, that sort of stuff. But they need to bring in maybe some firepower in the commercial side. So now the government effectively owns the company because of the money they're pouring into it. I mean, they don't own it. It's on the share, it trades in the stock market, but effectively it's only alive by government handouts. That's the only thing that keeps it going. They've got plenty of sales, but they can't. They're selling it below what it costs them to deliver. So if it costs them, $100 to deliver the thing, they're selling it for like $90, and then selling for less than that. They're probably selling it for. If it costs them $100 to make it, they're selling it for about $50 actually, per unit of output, and the government then is subsidising the rest, plus the operational cost of running the business. So out of every $3 that it takes to keep the business alive, the government is giving them $2, whether that's through accelerated tax write-offs or direct cash handouts and so on. So also, rather suspiciously, quite a few of the people working there are actually being paid by the NGOs. So there's effectively a group of hardcore activists in the business, in the company, that are actually being paid by outside activist interests that are in turn being subsidised by the likes of George Soros and those sort of people. So, that was a little bit concerning to find out. Why was that happening? That just didn't make sense. It's a standalone supposedly standalone commercial business. Why have they got activists in their bowels that are being paid by NGOs, for fuck's sake? Anyway, so they then changed to the CEO, who supposedly comes from a commercial background. And because the government's paying for it, then they're demanding that the top management be changed to be majority women and majority non-white. So again, you're trying to make the business successful on a commercial basis. So your first concern is how many black lesbians you've got in top management. who've never worked in commerce before and have never had a real job before. So they find some public servant, a woman, well connected. Again, she's never worked at a job in her life. She's just been a public service hack. They put her in charge on an enormous fucking salary. Someone who's got no chance of having a positive commercial impact on the business. Very prestigious, and her name's all over the paper, and the governments everywhere trumpeting her what a wonderful appointment it is. But to me, she was a backward step from the guy, and the guy had no commercial expertise. At least he was an expert in technology. Now they appoint this woman solely for political correctness reasons, not because she's got any commercial expertise. And I don't think she's bright enough to understand the technology. I think she's too stupid for anything like that. But anyway, they put her and changed some of the other top roles to. And I've met these people. You're sitting down thinking, "Holy fuck, I wouldn't employ any of you." And it was obvious where things were going. Now you don't need to be an actuary or get the full set of accounts in front of you to go through. You can see just through, okay, there's no way they're delivering that at a profit. I can see that. I mean, I've been around in business long enough, so I can look at that and go, that's not. You look at people who are in charge of certain departments and sections. You go, you got no fucking idea what you're doing. You're not even close. And then you look at the way how they're obsessed with prestige type issues, and they all want to have oversee. Now when some upper middle management, just because they're NGO connected and they're green warriors, they get given all these benefits that are not needed, do not help the business. So they get to travel 5-star all around the world, supposedly on study tours and fact-finding missions, things like that. And they get and again, it's 5-star. They're not staying at the local, trailer park or traveling coach class or something like that. This is first class aircraft travel, the first class hotels. It's, lobster and bouillabaisse and the waterfront restaurants and so on. I mean, these guys are putting out expense accounts that exceed the average salary. And yet they're nothing. They're just NGO flunky 2-bit activists that have been gifted these jobs and think they're hot shit. They're nobodies. They're nothing. They're just parasite, waste of money on the business. Now they've got all these hundred. My guess out of the 500 people, this is one coming out of the 500 people they had, I'd say maybe not quite half, but certainly 200 plus were absolute parasite waste of time. They contributed nothing, had no ability to contribute, didn't care. They were simply there to parasite off the host and have a good time and swan around pretending they were important and prestigious. And again, especially the younger women, that their role, as they saw it, wasn't to make the business successful. They were there to hunt down Nazis, because Nazis supported coal mining or use of coal and coal-fired power stations. So in their activist cognizance, they were all, and their job was to fight those Nazis, not to make the business successful. And you're sort of aghast, and you sit at these meetings and listen to the nonsense. And so we had some meetings with them, and it was my view that already they'd have gone bankrupt without the government handouts, and that even with the government handouts they would struggle. And in order to sort of sell more, they had to reduce the cost. They had to reduce the selling price in order to sell more. And whilst their costs were increasing, how many parasites running around the world first class can you afford to carry before your costs are blown utterly out of control? They probably could have contained the costs. I think if they just but the government was pressuring them. Look, we're giving you this money, so you have to employ our friends, and that's so there was a lot of that going on. I think they would have employed idiots anyway, but maybe they employed more idiots because of it. But there's another organisation that was pretty much in the same sort of situation, and they're on the verge of going broke. And again, we met with them, And I came away with a very negative view. I thought, why is it so hard for these green organisations that are receiving government money? Why is it so hard for them to hire even basically competent executive team? Why can they just cannot do? They just cannot do it. It's as if they're afflicted with some curse where they think, okay, who can we hire? Let's hire people who are totally unqualified to do these jobs. Let's hire people who will guarantee the failure of this organisation. It's almost as if they begin from that point and are determined to hang on to it. So we found in some case with the little bit of advice we'd give, they were, we didn't get too far into it. We decided to pull out before it went too far. But little bit of advice we gave, we found a strange sort of odd type pushback of, well, if we do what you say, then we have to be accountable for the results, and we don't want to be there. So there was this strange mood and attitude of non-accountability. It's failure and so on is not our problem. It's not something we worry about. We're not going to sweat it or stress it. Failure occurs, then that's just it. And if we fail, it's because all those Nazis made us fail. It was the Nazis that did it. But like Disney or the woke Hollywood, where some woke bullshit movie flops, it's the Nazis. It's because of all the racists that they didn't come to watch the movie, so it's the patriarchy. And these people in these businesses are like that. They see failure being a commercial failure. Well, it was not our fault. We're the good people. It's those Nazis that did it too. And so that they're not even trying to be successful. They're not even, what do we need to do to make the business successful? They come into the thing. They come into this whole exercise saying, well, if failure does occur, then the Nazis did it to us, the patriarchy, this and that, and right wing and Republican Trump, and then those are the people that caused it. And you sort of sit there quietly, the middies, listening to these outrageously incompetent children. To them, it's like they're playing doll's house or something. They just got no concept of reality, and so these sort of things are inevitable. And I've seen other instances of this, but politicians seem keen to throw money at it. Now, even centre-right governments are not shy about throwing big money at it, but always in return, they want their friends to be looked after. So it's almost like the government doesn't consider the investment of taxpayer dollars to be serious. It's like it's all for show. We're doing it because we can get a headline in a newspaper. We're green, we're saving the planet. But in reality, they don't even believe it. So we're throwing money out here. I've got a good buddy of mine. You have to hire him as a consultant on big bucks, or her on big bucks. And this is the other thing too, these green firms. I noticed they had like this coterie of this heavy tail of consultants, who were all sort of either activist or government flunkies. One of them I met in the car park, and she's just the mistress of a politician, and she wouldn't know green from blue, and doesn't give a fuck either. But she's absolutely entitled to travel the world first class on fact-finding missions where there are no facts she's actually trying to find, and she's absolutely entitled to that. And to even question her entitlement is heresy. She's almost outraged, and will laugh at you, as she did, laugh in your face when you say, well, what value are you adding to the business by running around the world on big bucks, spending all this money and so on? And she'll just scoff at you. You silly man, you don't know what you're talking about. I'm the mistress of a politician. These are the sort of perks that come with that job. Holy fuck. Anyway, these are the sort of people you see in it. No one's serious about making the business successful. And, the thing that irks me, and I think would irk anyone whose taxpayer dollars are being wasted in this way, is that they could hire competent people who, at least, you just can't make these things work because they're not viable from day one. but at least could make it, and that in itself would be an achievement. But even that seems to be beyond it. But there's no even effort at that. No one's sitting down, okay, let's hire someone who can really make a go of this. They just don't even have that mindset to begin with. You've been a Tasseless today, your Pushback channel, and thank you for listening.